All right, Jeff, who do you want in the first round of the playoffs? First place is here. Toronto or the Angels?
Definitely the Blue Jays right now.
Definitely the Blue Jays. I don't want to face Shohei Ohtani in the first round. The Guardians are in first place. This is the first time the Twins have been out of first place since like early May, I think. There's still nobody over 500 in the division, but who knows? If the Guardians sweep today, this could be the first time they are back at 500 and in control of the division. Meanwhile, the Twins have lost 3 in a row and are on their third team meeting, closed door meeting, whatever's going on there. They were 0 for 23 with.
But we'll get into it after we're well beyond our cold open, so we're gonna dive in.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Justin was so excited he forgot about the opening.
Everything is awesome.
Right now, I want to remind you to check out our title sponsor. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. For as snippy as our comments have been, and as snippy as we've been on the show, this is a first place team. Thank goodness the AL Central is a dumpster fire underneath a nuclear explosion. It's a little bit ridiculous. So you could sit here and be like, right now, the Angels and the Blue Jays, there's no longer a game 163. I know we're way ahead of ourselves here, but just in case yesterday's show, we saw that someone didn't know about the rule change about the options and how that was something I believe it was last season. But those are two teams that are currently tied with a 543 win percentage. And guess what? One of those teams would not make the postseason. So a Cleveland team that's under 500 could. Thank you.
And
AL
because
Central.
the Guardians, if they win their division, they get to host the first round because the division winner still gets to host in that case over the wild card. Hey, even though we are getting ahead of ourselves and obviously having a little bit of fun, the Guardians are going to move to 14 and 10 in the month of June. They are going to have their first above 500 month of the season. Even if they lose to KC and Chicago on Thursday and Friday, they cannot fall below 500 this month. Things are trending good. I mean, it's pretty interesting that when one good month vaults you to the top of your division, it makes you look like you're gonna cruise to the playoffs. But
weak schedule. I mean, we can go back through it. It's like, again, they lost of the last 4 series. They lost 3 of their last 4 series. They only beat Oakland, who's a terrible team, and right now they're destroying Kansas. This is it's a nice situation when the team in your division has to face arguably the best team in baseball, where you're facing the worst team in baseball. And it sets up Cleveland for success. I don't want to get too like bubbly that this is for sure. This is nothing is guaranteed by far.
One day.
It's just funny that we can sit here at near the end of June and be like, this is a first place team, even though they are flawed at pretty much every position that isn't third base or DH. It's been a interesting year.
And catcher. Hey, how dare you? And catcher. Bo Naylor won a Gold Glove on Tuesday night, and he won the Silver Slugger on Wednesday night. Okay,
Bo Naylor with his first career home run. It's fantastic. It's just funny how much we have people who just absolutely think he is a bust, and how many think that we like. Here's the thing: if Zunino
we hated him,
yeah. If Zunino was average, Bo Naylor still wouldn't be up. Zunino was so bad it didn't work, and they went to Naylor.
Nobody picked him up for a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason. And that thoracic outlet syndrome, it's him and Jared Walsh are the only hitters I've ever seen. I mentioned Jared Walsh yesterday. Jared Walsh, 2 years ago in 2021, looked awesome. He looked like, one of the best young first basemen in baseball. Now he's got like a 79 weighted runs created plus and has no power. The Guardians took a gamble, but I'm going to again point out for everyone who got angry that the Guardians, that was their one catching addition. Unless you added Sean Murphy, you struck out at catching. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the show. Christian Vasquez was arguably the number 1 free agent catcher. If you wanted a complete catcher, St. Louis with Wilson Contreras is definitely made some headlines. We could talk about that, but Christian Vasquez hasn't gone great. Those Toronto catchers hasn't gone great. Like, you either got Sean Murphy or you busted. Luckily, Cleveland had Bo Naylor in the background, and like I said, if they had anyone who was halfway decent, Bo would probably still be getting some things done, but what a day for him. And I just want to take one other moment and say, for everyone who's like, get on the bandwagon, like, this whole offseason, the people who are quote unquote bandwagon, the people who are like not in depth on this system, like we spend more time on the system than anyone else outside of maybe like Zach Meisel. Like we know the minors, we know the guys at the top. We do this every day, and we spend about 30 minutes before the show and about an hour afterwards discussing and setting up. We both had Bo Naylor.
To mention all the years before this that you and I were at. I mean, I didn't go to the captain's game tonight because they were air qualitied out. I'm going Friday. All the years we spent in the press box at Akron or Lake County, you know,
but we both had him as the number one hitting prospect in system. I'm not gonna crap talk anyone else, but for the people in the comments, like, hey, get on the bandwagon. I'm like, most of these quote unquote media people, and some of them are real media people. I shouldn't say quote unquote. Most of them are. It's like who were saying to call up Bo earlier. It's not that we were saying they shouldn't call up Bo. We were just explaining why it wasn't happening. And then, they probably had George Valera as the number one prospect. As most places had him as the number one hitting prospect.
Or Espino, yeah.
Number one hitting prospect, just hitting prospect.
Oh, yeah.
He was Naylor. But we both had Naylor one.
I'm going to go even further and pull my arm out of my socket, pat myself in the back. After he had that poor 2021, there were a lot of sites out there that dropped him like out of their top 10. Okay, you dropped him out of the top 10 even.
Yeah. No,
I still had him in my top 10 going into 2022. And that's not saying I knew he was going to turn it around because there were things in his swing and his approach to fix. He fixed it. I bet on the athlete. I bet on the player. And if he would have had a poor 2022, I'd have been forced to drop him. But I gave the guy a mulligan because he was young for the level, just coming off of 2020, and catchers develop later often. But a good athlete and a hard worker, you bet on that. And I did, and it worked out good. And the Guardians did. Obviously, that's what matters is they bet on, not me. But there are a lot of places I never lost faith in him. And it's not to say he's a perfect defender now. And nobody's saying that 2 weeks before he was called up, he was suddenly finished his development. He's got a lot still to develop, and you're at the point where it has to be at the major league level, and you couldn't play Zunino anymore. And like you said, it was two things. It was either get Sean Murphy or, you try to buy some time for Naylor and hope that, I think the best case scenario would have been being able to split those two at times, Zunino and Naylor, but it didn't work out that way. And there's a reason Zunino was out of baseball. No one picked him up. So enough negative. Bo Naylor, his first home run. He had an offensive breakout Wednesday.
3 home runs, 3 hits.
3 hits. His defensive awakening on Tuesday. Yeah, it was all good stuff. That ball, by the way, the home run he hit to left center field at Kauffman Stadium, which is one of the biggest outfields in baseball, not named Colorado, not named Coors Field. 417 to the opposite field. That is some legitimate raw.
Josh Bell's felt like the hardest hit to me. I'd be curious. I haven't looked at the data yet to see if that's true or not.
It was 464 where he hit it. I think his was the hardest hit ball. No. Jose Ramirez's home run was 108.4 off the bat. Bo Naylor's was 106.9 and Josh Bell's was 106.2. So
I was wrong.
The team that has a hard time with exit velocity tonight has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 balls over 100 miles an hour tonight in this game.
Yeah, everyone had a multi-hit game except for Ahmed, who had 1 hit and a walk. Ahmed's walking more. Give credit where it's due with him. I know people get tired of us, but he reached base twice. Brennan had a walk and no hit, and then tough game for Andres. But everyone else, it's just, Miles Straw had 2 hits and a walk. Yes, one was that weak infield single, but dude got on base, and that started that ridiculous 7-run inning.
Right.
7th run in the 7 runs in the 7th, right? Yeah. No,
he also had a
6 runs in the 7th, but it ended up being 7 total.
Yeah, and his walk also sparked a rally as well because it was 3-2, and he was able to work a walk. And I think that's what was the beginning of the end for Austin Cox, who, hey, last night we were saying we were worried about how the Guardians were going to face the guy making his first career start and being a lefty and having a short track record to go off of. Everything.
Jose got a stolen base in this one. They're like I said, hits all around. You had on top of the 3 home runs, you had a triple and 4 doubles. The Rosario's triple. I don't know if that one was really a triple. That was the
unfortunately, Melendez.
Yeah, I was like, that's a double and an error, but they're being a little kind there. But still, it was still an extra base hit. It was a good set of hitting by him. It was extra base city in this one. We will. I think we should take our first break, come back and talk about the pitchings. Talk about the pitchers in this. We haven't really had.
Let me ask you this: before we go to break.
Yes.
I know Salvador Perez is a long-time great player. He's got a WRC plus above 100. Not the best approach at the plate. Do the Guardians now have the best catcher in the sad crap of AL Central?
I'm going to say no for now. I think it's still Salvi for now.
Number two?
Would you take
Grandal?
isn't he having a really good bounce back year? We'll get into. I think we should get into this debate when we come back from break. Just to be that person. I'm gonna take one last look and see, but he's no worse than 3. I'm betting, but we'll be back after a quick note from our sponsors.
Well, the Guardians are playing well right now. So tickets, could be harder to come by than they have been in the past. Attendance is up, Jeff. Attendance is very good right now. So if you are checking for last-minute tickets, you don't know if you can get tickets to that game or some concert not named Taylor Swift or anything you want to go to this summer, check out the Game Time app. They have flash deals and last-minute tickets on every event you can ask for. The Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So forget planning months in advance. They have deals on tickets right for the day of the event, and they have flash tickets on all those events. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but create an account and redeem that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. $2:10 Eastern on Thursday. A little day baseball. Guardians and Royals. Check it out on Sirius XM as Shane Bieber tries to help the Guardians go for the sweep. Just search Guardians on your XM app. Are you still taking Grandal?
No. So here's what I decided just kind of look at things. He's not second because right now Jake Rogers is one of the 10 best catchers in baseball by defensive metrics along with offensive metrics between Cal Raleigh and GT Realmuto in WAR. Ryan Jeffers, by the way, is 10th in baseball but he's kind of a hybrid, so I don't know how you want to count him in terms of offense. So for as much as we get into Bo Naylor here, it's like, let's be honest, he's probably behind Salvi. He's probably probably Grandal territory, but he's behind Rogers. One could make a case for Jeffers over him. People are gonna get mad at me, but it's like I just want to temper things. He's up right now. Over the weekend, people were telling me he's the most overrated prospect in Cleveland baseball history. You know what he is? He is a good athlete who's going to make some massive blunders from time to time, be a solid defender on the whole, and have some strong offensive production. Maybe being measured is not the right approach, but I think you can't put him over Rogers right now if you're really paying attention in depth. And I don't think you can put him over Salvi with the highs and the lows. The Salvador Perez is down. He's at a 105. Defensive metrics don't love him overall. But yeah, it's
Jeff's just here to ruin all of our fun. I was just trying to have fun. Jeff's out here to just bring the mood down on a great day. The Guardians are in first place. Bo Naylor's breaking out. You're just killing the mood, man.
Highest scoring game of the year for them, most runs. I mean, they've had weeks they haven't put up 14 runs. By the way, it's the bottom of the ninth as we're recording this. This game is not over. We're like, I think it's safe. The Twins can't score 14 runs right now, but neither the Royals definitely can't. That is like a month's worth of runs for the Kansas City Royals is 14. This is a bad baseball team. All over. It is a Samad Taylor revenge game. He did have 2 walks in this one and was on base when they scored their only run. So that's about as good of a revenge game as the Kansas City Royals can get. I know I'm tempting fate, but before we do pitching, we should do attendance. Massively up this year. This is a bottom 5 attendance team this year. Right now they're bottom 10. I think they're like 21st, 22nd last time I checked. People are going to the game in spite of this team being incredibly frustrating. We've seen a lot of people in our comments who are like, man, it'd be nicer if they were losing by 4 runs instead of losing every game by 1. What do you think it is that's got people? Is it just a good season brings people out? It feels like that's not always the case we have seen. Is it that it was such a fun young team? Why do you think attendance is kind of been blistering.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, a lot of it, I mean, maybe it's carryover from last year. I do notice
Jose too helps, finally keeping someone for the first time. Do you think does that still have some cachet?
I don't know. I guess there's some of that. I guess maybe that took some time to resonate. Maybe people didn't buy the tickets last year, but they did this year because they know that he is here and the team was good last year. And I also wonder too. I know a lot of people who have talked about that whole ballpark pass thing they have going on, and I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how many of those they're selling, and they certainly are making it seem like demand is high for that. And I certainly would. I think that's a great deal as far as someone who's a little bit younger who would go to the games and not care about a seat and just want to be there. And I know some people gripe about how a baseball game is more of a social event than a baseball game, but hey, the idea is to get people there and get people excited and translate some of those.
The social event is talking about baseball as you're watching baseball. Like
that works for me. But I mean, you know what? The idea here is if you want this team to spend more money on payroll, the way it's going to happen, especially with the way
new
the TV
ownership
contract things looking, well, there's that. But you hope that the dollars being spent on this increased attendance goes towards payroll. That's the whole thing. So nobody, if you're one of the people who was like, people just go to drink beer and sit on their cell phone, but if they're there and they're spending money, just hope that money goes onto the field. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know. Maybe it's the team from last year. Maybe it's the Jose thing. Maybe it's that ballpark pass thing. It is interesting that like even the Oakland series, they were drawing well. Oakland's obviously not a high draw for anybody right now. So that, that's pretty good for them. And
I still love that stadium. That's one of my all-time favorites is that the fountain. Captured my attention as a kid.
And I was at one of the Milwaukee games last weekend, and I saw a lot of Brewers fans. So, it's a decent place to travel as for out of town baseball fans. There's a couple of Facebook groups I belong to too that are talking about how they want to see all the ballparks, and I see a lot of good reviews from out of towners who are checking Progressive Field off their little ballpark passport thing, and they all want to see it, and they've all had good experiences. So
outside of that, Marlins man guy who is a jerk. I've never seen anyone have negative responses.
No, I mean we took last year. I took my aunt and uncle who grew up in Cleveland, and then moved before the ballpark was built. They moved to Texas, and they never got a chance to go to the new ballpark. So last year was the first time they got to go, and unfortunately, they went July 4th weekend with us against the Yankees, and the Yankees absolutely blitzed them, and the attendance was great, and it was a lot of Yankee fans. The lines were long and kind of miserable, but hey, they went and they loved the ballpark. So a lot of out-of-towners, and I always hear good opinions from, and hopefully it'll get better with the renovations, although the renovations last time kind of didn't turn out the way they hoped. So hopefully next time it'll be even better. So a lot of good things here, a lot of positive things on today. We should look. I don't want to bring the room down a little bit because Logan Allen didn't pitch bad.
He was just too. He got up against it. You don't want to see 98 pitches and you didn't get out of the fourth. Like that's
right. And he didn't walk. He only walked two batters.
Yeah,
it was.
He did hit one. He only allowed 6 base runners, which is actually not bad either.
Yeah, 30. Okay, so he threw 98 pitches. 31 of those were foul balls. That's. So almost 30% of the balls you threw tonight were foul balls. That's
and 30% were balls. So he only had 30% strikes in the zone and or hit contact. I mean, he was 1/3 balls, 1/3 foul balls. Like that's, and he dropped his ERA to 3.47, and he's probably going down to AAA. So
here's the thing I want to say about that too. With him going to if he is the guy to go to AAA. Which I think he will be because it can't be by because he has to go Saturday. So they can't send him down. But with Cal coming Friday, I don't think it'll be Williams right now. Allen pitching today and having the last couple starts, having a hard time getting deep into the game. The thing is, I don't think they're sending the AAA. Like, yeah, are there still things he can work on? Sure. He's a young enough player where you can't sit there and say that he is a stalwart rotation member and he is. But the other side of that is there is nothing left for him in AAA to prove that won't help him at the major league level. Like when he goes on to AAA, it's really just for him to kind of manage his innings and not throw 98 pitches in 3 innings. It's more to manage the pitch count in the innings. It's going to AAA isn't going to help him get any better. He's got nothing left to prove. His development has to finish the big league level. If he goes down, it literally is just making room for Cal, and it is the timing, and he needs to have some of his innings managed the way things have gone the last few starts.
I think it's easier to work on something like sequencing in the minors where it doesn't matter. Like win or loss doesn't matter. And it's clearly when you were having that many foul balls, there's some degree of sequencing to work on. So I wouldn't say there's nothing he can work on, because sometimes like in the big league, some of that sequencing can't get done if your pitches, you're not going to necessarily throw this pitch in this situation where it gives you some opportunities to kind of work on that pitch sequence, throw a pitch, no matter the count, no matter the score. That's why, especially as pitchers, like you don't want to get too obsessed with like last year with what happened with Logan Allen in AAA, because sometimes they're working on something like pitch sequencing where they're going to throw maybe not in an ideal pitch in an ideal setting because they're working on being able to in the future work on that. So I think there's things he can work on. Do I think, if it wasn't for timing? No. I mean, timing is number one. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I do think there's still things. This can still be positive growth. There's going to be a juggle, and just with the way this team is built, I don't think a lot of those guys aren't used to the idea of a 6-man rotation. So it's what has to happen.
What about the idea? They won't do it because they're not going to shortchange the bullpen, and
no,
you can't manage the roster that way with the bullpen, especially the way they use it with a piggyback situation where, Logan goes 3 innings or 70 pitches behind Cal or whoever. I don't know, even Tanner.
I think it's
they won't do it. I'm just saying it's an idea.
I just think it's too hard to do. Like it works in the minors because you're gonna have extended benches and you can have all those arms and you can set it up. I think taking, we have seen this team, they use every arm in that pen, and we're kind of probably stuck on Herron for a while. And maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it. Like, I think Tim Herron is a good pitcher. He's had his struggles right now. He's not a completed project by any means, but because of the option situation that we talked about yesterday, you can go listen to that. So, it's like, who do you even send down? It's a tricky situation to go through. And
Sandlin, because Sandlin somehow has options left because of the injury.
Yeah.
Someone did leave a comment for us asking about the option thing. We should clarify.
Sandlin was great again tonight, by the way, almost below 3 ERA. Can you afford to send that guy down?
That's true. Yeah, he came in when Allen left a couple runners on early in the game when the game was still 4-0, and got that out. That was a huge out. He pitched well.
Sandlin's been great. He has been great this year.
Yeah, the control could always be better, but yeah, he's been good. So the way the options work, they changed this in the CBA after the lockout. Players still have 3 option years that you can use out the 3 years, but to improve players' quality of life, so you're not sending guys up and down 20 times a year.
Not doing the old Rays approach.
Yeah, which happened to former Indians minor leaguer reliever. What was his name?
Lewis Head.
Lewis Head, former Indians.
Is it sad that I could figure it out just based on that much? I might have a problem.
I know. Yeah, I think he got
sent that, or we have like some kind of really weird connection where I was like, Lewis Head?
Could be both. Yeah, could be both. Well, it was a very unique story. I mean, he went up and down like 10 times. So
he traded to the Marlins that offseason. I don't know if he ended up pitching for them, but I actually liked that deal at the time because Marlins my bullpen. But that's another story.
Yeah, and he had a long road to get to the majors. He was a fun
good on
player,
him.
A fun story. So you can only option players down 5 times in a single season now, and after the 5th time, you can't do it again unless you want to expose them to waivers. So the 6th time essentially means you would be exposing them to waivers, and anybody can claim them. So you have 5 times Herron. The next time Herron gets sent down, if he does, would be his 4th time. So you can only do it 1 more time after that, and there's still a lot of season left to go. So that makes it dicey.
100%. Yeah, it's listen, we're gonna take our next break here, and we're gonna come back. I think we still have a few more fun things to talk about in terms of the division, in terms of this game, in terms of tomorrow's matchup on today's Locked On Guardians.
$2:10 on Thursday. Listen to the Guardians go for the sweep on SiriusXM. Search Guardians on your SiriusXM app.
Yeah, this is I don't know, it's fun looking at this team right now and being like, game is officially final, by the way, as we're recording. Cleveland is now officially in first place in the division. As you mentioned earlier, a win tomorrow puts them
second sweep of the year.
Second sweep of the year, and beating the bad teams, which is what you have to do. That's not negative. That's what good teams do. They beat bad teams.
Right.
They have Bieber versus Greinke.
That's a winnable matchup for sure.
A very winnable matchup.
It's going to be hotter than what it was. 104. They said with the heat index today, and I'm sure a day game
even hotter in a day game.
Yeah, no thanks.
I'll save it for the very end, but I was realizing we never talked about them losing Tuki Toussaint. Side note.
Oh yeah, claimed by the White Sox, and I think he had a pretty big outing on Tuesday. I saw a couple tweets saying what a great job he did on Tuesday getting out of a jam. So yeah,
interesting.
He's sticking the bigs. The pitching staff at Columbus right now is it's kind of messed up. I mean, they did sign Jared Eichhoff and Riley Smith to fill out roles there.
Yeah, I saw people looking a little too deeply into that. It's like they just needed arms. Like don't get focused on A, B, C, or D. That was nothing other than they need bodies.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. It happens every year to a lot of teams, and it's just interesting though that Zach Plesac is nowhere to be found. He has been on the inactive list since he cleared waivers, so he must be reworking through some things.
I'm kind of curious to see, Chris Flexen was just waived, and he can become a free agent, and he makes $6 million. I'm curious to see if he gets claimed, because that's going to really kind of be some insight onto the Plesac situation. Because Zach Plesac was only making about $3 million this year, so he was free to a good home at a decent price for a guy who has been a back end starter at least. So I don't know what's going on there. That's a weird situation. AAA has been pretty ugly in general. Offense, defense. It's not a great time down there.
Someone is going to comment though after saying that. Hey, by the way, Don Kesnell had a grand slam, and Oscar Gonzalez had 2 hits and a walk-off hit. So, you know what? I said it the other day, and I know it's a small sample. I would not be against. This is not the day to get into it. We wanted to talk about sometime this week. We wanted to talk about maximizing the roster and changing the lineup because it still needs to happen. And I don't know if 14-run game against the second changes that. Even though coming into Wednesday night's matchup, the Guardians were the 10th best offense in baseball in the month of June, and that's because Will Brennan and Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor are hitting. You got some other good things happening. So
the Kansas City Royals announce crew. Normally, I listen to the opposing one. The comment today was, and I quote, "Well, Josh Naylor was trying too hard. Sometimes he would swing and his helmet would fall off."
Oh, Josh Bell, yeah, that's
no Naylor. It was Naylor.
Oh, really?
Explain why Naylor is now playing so well. It's because now he's more controlled and his helmet isn't falling off when he swings.
What would they say when Jose Ramirez loses his helmet? Because he's never.
Well, I mean, they were fawning over Jose, so everything. Jose. Well, most of it was Will Brennan talk today as the native son. That was a lot of Will Brennan talk, well deserved. But really that was kind of humorous. The Royals broadcast, not one of my favorite external ones so far. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I don't even know who their broadcasters are anymore. But hey, by the way, somebody won a car thanks to Jose Ramirez's grand slam in the 3rd inning too. They're still doing that. Somebody won it last year, and somebody won a car courtesy of
Rex Hudler's on the radio. I should have done the radio feed. I bet he'd be good. And Jeff Montgomery, the former closer of the radio guys, I feel like
I did like Jeff Montgomery as a player.
Yeah. Denny Matthews, Steve Stewart, and Jake Eisenberg.
I don't know any of those guys.
Oh no, those are radio announcers.
Who's their TV crew? Is Rex Hudler on their TV?
No, he's not. Radio play by Randy. I've known this guy's been around forever.
Lefebvre or
yeah,
or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Lefebvre. I can't pronounce it.
And it was Hudler. Yeah.
I like
Hudler wasn't. I thought we would have brought more to it, I guess. But yeah, it was Hudler and Lefebvre.
No. I wouldn't be against. I wouldn't be against Oscar coming up and taking at bats in right field and moving Brennan to center and playing Straw against lefties only. But I know
Straw's got the reverse splits, so then you're not.
That's true.
And then it's like Oscar can only play against lefties. I just don't. And Oscar's,
in the interest of trying to maximize the roster, and
I just think that at the end of the day, what you get when you do that defensive switch is going to be canceled out because I don't think it's a big enough offensive jump because Oscar still can't. He's struggling to hit a AAA in one of the most hitter-friendly parks in AAA.
Yeah, and it is a small
they need. Yeah, they need. He's almost 200 plate appearances and he's not hitting.
He has a huge OPS against lefties. Again, I know it's a small sample. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
think they need external help. Like I'm not opposed to Straw moving that fourth outfield role, but honestly, I think they need to be looking at external, not internal.
Yeah, but we said the other day that a Jordan Luplow, Brandon Geyer, Brian Rayburn is not going to get this team to where it needs to go. Although, who knows? I mean, again, Brennan looks like he's settled in a little more. Naylor looks like Naylor, I'll say this, is a borderline all-star. I'm not saying he's an all-star because we know how hard first base is.
Yeah,
we've had the discussion. He's a border. Yeah, and then obviously Jose is an all-star. And you got Bo, who could be settling in offensively. They still need a couple guys to kind of figure things out. They need Josh Bell to figure it out. Andres Jimenez has a lot.
One nice thing you'll say with Bell is that dude has been consistently inconsistent. He is a guy who typically has one good half, one bad half for his whole career. He's had one.
But the second half is good.
Yeah, so maybe there's a chance he'll turn it around. Yeah, I mean Andres, he's shown some signs of life.
He's had a lot of stops and starts. I feel like he has like a streak where he's like, oh, he looks like he's starting to figure it out, and then he has a bad stretch. Yeah.
No, agreed. 100% agreed.
It's good though. I mean, like you said, this is what they should be doing. We should. I mean, I know it's a little weird to get excited about. You're in first place. You're under 500. You beat the Royals because they're terrible. They had a hard time sweeping the Oakland Athletics. And I know it's like for a team that won a division a year ago, should you really be getting excited about this, considering we expect them to win the division? And to a certain extent, yes. But with how frustrating the season has been, it's okay to take a step and be excited about something with this team. Yeah. If you're one of the fans who is out there night in and night out, and you're watching the game, going to games, you're on Twitter, you're listening to us night after night, try to explain ways how this team can get better and be frustrated that they were stuck in the mud for a while. It's okay to have a night where even if you feel like it's not something worth celebrating, it's okay to be happy about it. They're going to have their first over 500 month, and this is what they should be doing. And look, like you said the other week too, Jeff, they have a bad schedule coming up. They have KC. The Cubs are not great. They have to face Atlanta. That's going to be interesting. And then they end the half with 4 against KC. And I think you even said after the Milwaukee series, this is a team that should be in first place by the All-Star break. And right now they are. And we'll see what happens with Atlanta. Because, look, the Guardians could face the Braves and they could literally get their brains beat in. They could. That's the best team in baseball right now. Maybe besides the Rays. But we'll see what happens. I mean.
But that's why, at the other side of it, these next 3 series, Atlanta is so tough. You got Cubs, you got Royals.
Winnable series. Winnable series.
The Twins have 2 series against Baltimore, who I think has the third best record in the American League, and 1 against Kansas City. So they got 1 easy one and 2 really tough ones. So Cleveland's got 1 easy, 1 tough, and 1 middling. So they have a chance. This is a team that should remain in first when they get to that break. And we'll have to see how things shake out. The one thing I'll say is the problem right now. Parity does exist in baseball. There is not a lot of great trade options. We close to the deadline. We can discuss it. This team can't afford to stand pat like they did a year ago, though. Like, I know they did not try to stand pat. They tried to go all in on Murphy and they fell, and they tried to go all in on guys. And they need to finally get something. A year ago on this very show, I was saying, hey, if we can't get Sean Murphy, get Connor Joe. And while Connor Joe ended up being terrible in the second half, you know what? He's doing really well right now for the Pirates and would still be nice in that platoon role. Find a way to get better. Find a way to improve this team. If it's internal, if it's external. Right now, a lot of the internal options are great. Some of those players have been hurt or they haven't performed. So it's kind of up to the front office to figure out how they can, get this team over the hump.
As we get out of here, I should have said this earlier, but maybe we should start a tracker. Maybe we should have started a tracker, but now that the Guardians have teetered back into first place, where are we on the trade Shane Bieber meter? Are we not likely, somewhat less likely, definitely trading? Where's the spectrum right now?
I've been kind of unlikely the whole time because I just don't think the return is good enough to balance the loss.
But now that they're in first place,
still very unlikely.
Does that shift them down the dial a little more?
It's like the same spot. Like if they get bowled over, they make the trade before. If they get bowled over, I think they'd still consider the trade now because, again, Logan Allen's got an ERA under 3.5. He's got some minor things to work on, but he's a major league starter, and they can't find a spot for him. So I think, if they could find a situation in either world where they could get that, outfielder that they've been needing for years, get another bat, I think they consider it.
I don't know if that exists. That's the problem. Yeah.
If you can sell peak and make your core stronger, like they did with Bauer, like they did with Clevenger, like they did with many a starter in season when they're trying to contend, I still think it's possible. But
if they still had Tristan McKenzie healthy, I would be more leaning towards a possibility, but that is not a possibility right now. We should hear more on that in the next few days. Hopefully it's good news, but sorry to leave you with bad news on the last moment of the show.
Well, we're gonna leave you here. We'll be back tomorrow talking about another Guardians win. Maybe we'll get into some. I did some big draft data pools that'll be kind of interesting to talk about. So make sure you're tuning in, rating, reviewing, downloading daily. Yesterday was our biggest show in a few weeks, so thank you all. And how we always end it: go first place, Guardians.
First place.
Go.